This other way of thinking is, wait, we're using change efforts to literally unleash the human potential in the company. And always in a transformation, you're going to be changing mindset, behavior, and culture. So how do we use each of these change projects that are heavily about content, right? The IT installation or whatever. How do we use them to raise people's mindset? How do we bump up the quality of their behavior, maybe from command and control to co-creation? How do we raise the culture from distrust to trust, right? The way that you do that is you do your change efforts in a way that produces that result, not just installation and sustainment. So it's widening our view. Now again, if you're just going to unconsciously play the role that we tend to play in change management, you can't do this. But if you have this mindset, then you can begin to influence through your conversations with leaders and sponsors and project managers how they might begin to see this possibility. Because again, your job, from our perspective, help them see what they don't see. So engagement, again, for us, it starts with the belief and the knowledge that commitment begins on the inside. And we know that when people, as smart adults, are left in the unknown, they'll generally make up stories about how bad it's going to be. So there's always a boogeyman under the bed, in the closet. And if we ignore that basic fact of how the mind works, the human dynamic, how ego works, then we actually set ourselves up for challenges with adoption. But if, on the other hand, we acknowledge that it's just natural for people to be resistant to something they don't know, and understand that it's challenging them in a number of different ways, then we can build our change processes consciously to address those challenges. So one of the things we know by our own and others' research from the last 40 years is that people's internal selves get activated in various ways. On the one hand, I have my small Dean self that's driven by my little ego that has fears. And the fears that humans have are the fears around security, right? Now, I would have to check, say, do I have those, and what are those? And I'm asking you to do the same. I have fears around security. I have fears around inclusion. Will I, as a human being, be included when this change is done, right? I have fears around power. Will we lose power or gain power in this? We as humans have fears around control. Will it go out of control? Will we have less control in our organization? They're telling us to do it this new way. I have no control. I just got to follow this. Control issues. I have fears around competency. Will this change actually put me in a situation I'm untrained for? Will I be expected to have a level of performance in this new system, and I haven't heard squat about the training I'm going to get or the ongoing coaching? And is my pay going to be tied to perform? All that, which then would interact with my security issues. And then I have fears around justice. Will it be fair? Right? So we've got security, we've got inclusion, we've got power, we've got control, we've got competency, we've got justice. Now, if you're not aware that that's going on in every human being on the planet, then we can very easily build change processes that trigger multiple parts of those fears. But if we know they're going on, we can then begin to build change processes consciously to address and mitigate those fears as much as possible. And not just trigger people's egos, but trigger the other side of who they are as human beings, which is fundamentally, I'm a being, right? And I have an ego. And that ego has some fears and concerns and doubts. But my being wants to engage in a way that makes a contribution. It wants to engage passionately to make a difference. I come to work wanting to make a positive footprint on the world. That's just who I am as a human, who we are, including your leaders and the workforce. But what part is the change process engaging? Is it engaging this part where all those fears, and then this other part that really just wants to commit and is willing to be brave and courageous and step in the unknown, that doesn't get tapped into? Or are we designing change processes that mitigate these fears and really engage people's passions and commitments? Right? That's ultimately engagement. Now, if we're blind to that conversation, then we just do it the way that leaders think we should and the way the profession says we should, and we're taking that, that design, and we're now dealing with that resistant world trying to get to adoption. And so context here is we want to then enter this saying, look, we're all about engaging because the engagement is the way in which we light people up to be their full selves, to make their biggest contribution to the end game, that instills and catalyzes their commitment, that raises their game of contribution. So the organization, through the changes, spirals up to a higher state and a higher way of contributing to its customers and society. That's engagement for us.